Hello, I thought I might make a little update about this plane and show you what I've done to it since the last video. Actually, I haven't really done that much, to be honest, but I'll just show you the little that I have done. So after the other video that I made, the two motors arrived because I decided to go with two motors instead of just the one. And I put the wings on and put the motors on, or just sort of sellotape things where they were probably going to go, just to get an idea of the CG, because I was really getting worried about that, and for good reason, because it turns out that the tail was just going to be too heavy really. So what I've decided to do, what I've mostly been doing, is changing the tail a lot. Stuff up the front hasn't changed that much. Those two batteries there, quickly discovered that they're going to have to go as far forward as possible, so that's where they're going to have to stay. And I'll probably make some sort of a tray that I can put in from the side like that, so rather than putting them in here, it might work, but it's a little bit tight there. I'll probably put them in from the side. Yeah, so most of what I've changed is on the tail. I've cut out some of those sort of truss members or whatever they're called in there that probably weren't necessary, and overall just trying to shave off every little gram that I can from here. And obviously one of the main things that helps with that is not having the servos here where they were before, and I'm going to be putting them up here and using a pull system to turn the control surfaces at the back. Originally I had some crazy carbon fibre hinges with ball bearings on here, and yeah, I just don't think that was really going to work. One main problem was that the centre of the elevator wasn't very well supported. I did like the fact that it turned on the axis of the dowel that the control surfaces are made of. So I've decided to go with the pull system. You can see the little things on there. Haven't quite finished putting it together yet. And I'm also going with some of these plastic pins that you can get like that as hinges. I also tried, there's a method you can use of weaving tape. So you use a piece of tape that goes, sort of sticks on the bottom and then comes up to the top, and then alternates, so the next one will stick on the top and come to the bottom the other side. And I really like that actually, because it doesn't give you this big gap between the stabilizer and the control surface like I've ended up with in this system, which is not ideal. But the problem with the tape system was it's just a bit awkward to mount on, and the tape would be sticking to my covering on each side. So obviously I've also taken out that piece of foam that I had in here, which was 26 grams each side, so that was 52 grams just to get rid of that, so that was easy. And I did a test fit of the covering film that I said I didn't really like too much. It seemed kind of weak, but turns out that it's actually pretty good. So I stuck some pieces on here without having anything in the middle, and I think it might be alright like that actually. Although, it still would be nice to have something a little bit in here, maybe a little bit of... I might put a bit of that foam back in just in the middle to give a little bit of support in the centre, so that the covering film's not completely stretching across this whole gap. Although I found that if you use a hot air gun very carefully, you can get it to tighten out nice like a drum. So hopefully I can do it the way I did it before. I've taken it off now because it was not really the colour that I wanted to use. It was tablecloth colour. We don't want tablecloth looking colours, do we? So what else have I done here? Oh yeah, I made this funky... oh yeah, we have undercarriage now. So at the back here, I went through a couple of iterations of tail skid. I tried to make a wheel at first, and I decided I didn't really need a wheel. Originally I had a carbon fibre skid that was just going to be a skid. Got it from Hobby King, along with that really cool legs there, carbon fibre. Not too expensive either. I think it was about $30 for that. I thought that was pretty good. So I had a sort of a skid on the back here, but it wasn't going to be tall enough, and I wanted to make sure that the angle as it sits on the ground wasn't too steep. So originally, with just my carbon fibre skid, it was really steep, sort of a angle like that, which would have worked, but I just wanted to make sure that the tail or the rear end of the rudder here was further off the ground. So what I've gone with is this 1.8mm thick high impact polystyrene, which I have a huge sheet of, and I heated that up and I bent it around one of my vice grips, which I'll probably be showing you a little bit of footage of that at the moment, and that worked out quite nicely because I could make it sort of whatever height I wanted, and it's nice and light, and should be alright just to drag around on the ground like that, although I don't think I'm going to be able to steer on the ground very well like that, even if I use differential thrust, which I probably will not. So it looks like this plane's not going to be able to steer on the ground very well at all. So on the front, like I said, we have this very nice carbon fibre landing gear legs here from Hobby King, and that's about 200 grams, and it got even heavier because I used 12mm plywood. This is the water treated, moisture treated plywood, so it should be alright to get wet. And in there I have some pretty heavy ball bearings, heavy 8mm nut and bolt, and on the outside of it I wanted to use this stuff which I bought earlier, which would have looked a lot better, sort of insulation for pipes, and when you wrap that around the plywood it looks really cool, but it's just really difficult to get it to stick on there because it doesn't bend, doesn't curve around and stay curved very nicely. But what I've put on here, which was not necessary, but I thought I'd put it on because anything going forward of the CG, I wasn't particularly worried about the weight too much. So I've got this thick black rubber which is for putting inside door frames to stop the draft getting through your door in your house, and that sticks on really nicely. It's adhesive on one side, you can probably see some of the stickiness on that side, and it wraps around quite nicely as well. And on the outside of that I've just put some grey duct tape which will probably break and fall off and need replacing fairly soon, but looks nice, and it's really nice and smooth movement too. So yeah, it just rolls really good because it's on ball bearings, right? So what else was I going to show you? I think I was going to show you something up here, but I can't remember exactly what. Yeah, so I'll have a look at some of these parts that I got, but you can see how the pull control horns are going to be on there, and I had to put the one for the rudder at the bottom right down here, unfortunately, which was not quite where I wanted to have it. It would have been nicer to have it a little bit more central in the hinge part, like about here. But if I had it above the tailplane, it would have really been getting in the way of this one, so it would have had to go like way up here somewhere crazy like that. So I thought it should be alright to go on the bottom, and that should let the cable go fairly nicely into the fuselage like that. And at this point here there should be no conflicts between them, as long as that goes to about there. Everything should be happy. So that's my next job now, just to get those cables in and make a mount for these servos to sit in at the front. Oh yeah, and this is my thing. It's a bit rough, but I think it should do the job alright. It's nice that you can sort of perfectly customize a part to exactly what you want. So these are the motors that I'm going to use. I don't think I had these last time to show you, but they are 4250, 580 kV, and you're probably thinking, what? That's way too small. And you may be right, I don't know. But I think I'm just really pushing the limits of what these motors will be able to do. And I'm going to run them with 16x8 props, like that. That's those props, quite nice props actually. And I couldn't find a counter-rotating one, so I'm just going to go with both clockwise or whatever that is. Yeah, clockwise. And I did a thrust test with these, and I'm going to run everything on 4S, which again is not ideal for a plane this size either, but I think I might just be able to pull it off. Is what I'm thinking at the moment. Anyway, my thrust test, they got A little bit warm. Nothing. 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 Yeah, just this a little bit warm, that's all. 3.1 kilos at full throttle, and at half throttle they're about 1.2 kilos. And I run them at half throttle for about 3 or 4 minutes, and they barely heated up the ESC at all. Nothing else got warm, so I think I'm safe to use these ESCs. The ESCs I'm going to use are Hobbywing Skywalker 50 amp, and I didn't do a current test when I was doing my thrust test, but I have seen a thread on RC groups where a guy tests these motors with a bunch of props, and he measured them to be pretty much the same thrust as what I got, just over 3 kilos, and they were 40 amps at 4S, that is, while he was doing it. So I'm just going to trust his measurement and assume that we're only going to be pulling 40 amps at full throttle. So this 50 amp continuous rated ESC should be fine to do that. Of course I will need another one, which I have in my Mini Talon, so Mini Talon's going to have to donate an ESC because one of these blew up when I put it on my boat, unfortunately. Yeah, so that's the ESC. We have some bits over here. I had to cut those control horn things off. After all that work I put in to make them, I'm just not going to need them. That was from the rudder and the elevator there. So this is my attempted tail wheel, which didn't really work out. For one thing, I decided it wasn't really necessary, and the other thing was that it didn't turn very freely on the carbon fibre skid that I had it attached to. And the other problem was that even though it's quite strong in this dimension, if I push directly downwards it doesn't go anywhere. But if I push sideways, it's not going to do it for me very well with one hand, but it's sort of, if I push it down like that, it bends quite easily, not while I'm trying to do it here, but when it was on the plane it just bent around all soft and floppy. So plus it was a lot heavier than the plastic plain old skid that I ended up with, so not gonna do that. Over here we have some other bits. I just got some of these pull cable kits from Hobby King. I was a little disappointed to see that they don't include the last little piece that you need to hook it onto your control horn. So you've got the cable and the crimping bit and some heat shrink, but at the end of it, the last piece that you're going to have is this 2mm threaded rod, and what the hell you're supposed to stick that into I don't know. So I had to find separately on Banggood some of these things, and this is what you thread that into. For some reason I just sort of assumed that this would be in the set of stuff, and I didn't look too closely. So it's been a lot of buying things and waiting 2 weeks for stuff to arrive from China or Australia or whatever, and then realising I need something else and waiting another 2 weeks and that kind of thing. Anyway, so that's what those are, some spares for that stuff there. These I found on Banggood. They're amazingly cheap. I think they're 70 cents each or something like that. They are very soft though. Very soft. See, that's yeah, that's how soft they are. But they are cheap, and I think they'll be fine as long as you don't pull on them sideways. They're not supposed to be pulled on sideways. And you can get them in opposing directions too. So these ones, let me straighten that a little bit. These ones should be opposites. So they come in sets like that, which is pretty good. And you can also get just the backing plate only. I think they come in a set of 2 of those and 2 of these in each one for 70 cents. It was pretty cheap. So that was quite nice. And I also bought a bunch of these, which I'm going to use on my servos. And I'm just going to use a little piece of aluminium to make my own servo arm and stick on this, and I can make it whatever length I want. I was a little bit disappointed with these too, because of the 8 that I bought, these are about $1.75 each. I bought 8 of these. This is the only one that fits on the servo horn properly, or the servo spline. The other ones are completely different. They're really shitty. Look at this. So the one on the left is the good one, and the one on the right, which they sold to me as the same product, is crap. Doesn't fit on at all. I heard somebody, was one of the comments on that product listing said you can heat it up with a hot air gun or something and it will fit on, but I don't know if I can be bothered to do that. So yeah, still Still might have to locate another one of these somewhere. And for the ailerons, I've got these which are aluminium instead of the nylon or whatever the default ones are that come with the servo, so that should be a little bit stronger. What else have we got here? Oh, these are, I had these already. I used them on my computer desk to hold the lights on for my filming things for YouTube, but they're going to be used to hold the wings onto the spars now. And over here, I think I had the wings built last time, but I didn't have this second aileron fully covered, and now I have glued on these carbon fibre bits to the aileron, so they're actually solidly stuck there in the final position. And I just made sure that everything is moving nice and freely here, a little bit freer than it needs to be actually, this one, but yeah, so next job is to put some linkage on there. Now for the motor mounts, I have this. See if I can get this off. Oh yeah. So I drew this up in my CAD program, and this is just a plywood prototype just to see how it fits in. But I've sent away to Armatan Productions to cut this out of carbon fibre for me, because I wanted it to be 3mm carbon fibre, which I don't have any more of, and yeah, it's actually just easier to send away to Armatan to get stuff done, really, especially when it's sort of a little bit large. Like my machine, as you know, is not really. See, that piece there is 20 by 20 centimeters. That's about all it can manage, and this is sort of, we're talking about 16 centimeters there, so yeah, it's getting towards the upper limit of what my machine could have done anyway. Anyway, but what this is as we saw there, slots in between those two front bits, and I'll have to cut away some of these little wedge bits. Am I getting this right? It's not supposed to be a loose fit, so it's okay that it's a bit tricky to get in, but it's going to sit in there up against this, of course, and probably just screw it together with that rib. And then on the front, that little cutaway there is for this big lump at the back of the motor. So the motor is going to sit on like that. Not quite in the right position there, but you get the idea. And I've actually angled the motor thrust line 1 degree down, maybe 2 degrees, something like that, from the, so it's not level with the bottom of the wing, it's actually down a little bit, which I can't remember exactly why I did that, but I think, yeah, when the plane is flying, the wing is not perfectly level, right? It's going to have to be angled up a little bit. But I wanted it to be so that the wing is angled up, and even though the wing is angled up, the motor will be pointing directly forwards to the direction of flight. That was my thinking for that. And so obviously the motor can't just sit on there directly. So what I'm going to do is, and I'll make a bracket that sits sort of like this. So one side will be like that, and the other side will be like this, and they'll bolt together and clamp onto this carbon fibre. And then the front facing plates will have screws for the motor to mount on, and I'll have to cut away quite a bit of that aluminium in the middle bit there where the that little cutout is, to make sure that everything fits. So that's the plan at the moment. Let's get some of it done. Wow, feels really good. Alright, so that's where everything's at the moment. I think I'll leave it there for now. I'm just letting these guys check it over, see what they think. Yep, yeah, it is pretty good, isn't it? So this, I haven't quite finished this, of course. I'm going to put a bit of fiberglass over that and then probably paint it red. Everything's just held on with sellotape at the front here at the moment. I'm actually thinking that maybe tape would be enough even to fly it with, but yeah, we'll see. So here's the flight controller tray. These doors pop off on either side, so these are going to be the access points. Of course I will hinge them at the front so they can swing out like that, and use this little bit at the back to fix a sort of a fastener that I haven't decided on how that's going to work yet, but something like this. So that bit there will have some sort of a latch on it. And the rest of the work, most of the rest of the remaining work is going to be on the wings now. So just a little bit of wiring to go on in here. And basically everything from this point backwards is all finished. And it's working quite well, and I'm quite pleased about my toughened section. So we've got weak section here that would be ripped by the cable, and then we've got nice tough section for the cable to go through there and under there as well, and everything's working out quite nicely. So I think I'll just leave it here for now. Tune in next time when we do something with the wings and the motor mounts, I guess. See ya.